Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to the first episode of 2023 of the Last Round Podcast. Happy New Year. Hopefully you guys all had some good holiday time off or whatever you did. Maybe you listened to our show during your vacation. Who knows? Hopefully you did. Gave us some listens. We definitely appreciate it. But if you didn't, but if you're listening now, even better. So, first guest of 2023. He's probably one of the busiest guys in boxing media, journalism, reporting. He's definitely all over the Last Round timeline on Twitter. We see his stuff all the time. He's been on the show multiple times before. He used to live on the West Coast over here by us, but now he's on the East Coast, and he just recently attended the Gervonta Davis, Hector Luis Garcia fight in Washington, D.C. on Showtime pay-per-view that we will touch on in a second. He's the editor for NewYorkFights.com and was recently approved as a Ring Magazine ratings panel contributor alongside another friend of the show, Corey Erdman. Abraham Gonzalez joins us. I got your last name right this time. Last time I called you Abraham Lopez, like the Golden Boy fighter who used to fight for them. But this time I remembered. Abe Gonzalez joins us again. Thank you for joining us, Abe.
Hey, thank you, Jess, for having me. Last time I had hair in my head. This time I don't. So, new year, new me, I guess.
So for people, obviously, audio podcast here. You're bald now. You had hair before. What happened? What's going on here?
Hey, it's called turning 43 years old.
Hey, man, that's a pretty straightforward, simple explanation that I think a lot of people can connect to. So we definitely get it. But as I mentioned, Abe, obviously we appreciate you joining us again. It's been a while, so thank you again for jumping on here on the Last Round with us. So jumping right into it to fight reviews this past Saturday, the 7th of January from the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. on Showtime pay-per-view. Gervonta Tank Davis remains undefeated at 28-0 with the 9th round TKO over Hector Luis Garcia, who suffers the first defeat of his career. So, Abe, you were in the building. What'd you think? We were told it was a sellout, just under 20,000, 19 and change. What was your, before we kind of get into the fight, what you thought about it, what was your experience at that arena on that night?
First of all, when you go into, and we've been to many fights, right? Normally, when the doors open, there's a couple people rushing in, locals and stuff like that. There was literally a mob of people at the front door of the Capital One Arena, right, like minutes before they opened the door. The police had the block barricaded. It was a scene at 4:00 in the afternoon. I was like pulling up on the Uber, and I was like, man, this is gonna be an event. And it was just electric all night. Everything from, everyone was, as they say, suited and booted, dressed up. You had, side action gambling in the bathrooms, literally. And it was just an experience. A lot of fighters were in town for that. Spoke to, Gary Russell Jr., asked him when he was going to come back. He said, hey, summertime.
He fought that night.
Almost did. Spoke to Stephen Fulton Jr., which he says that he was looking. It's looking like Brandon Figueroa in March, but then I asked him about a certain monster, and he was like, hey, doesn't mean I can't go back to 122, and then when I mentioned the monster, he just smiled with his like diamond filled teeth and. Just left it at that. So, he's a competitor and, he wants to fight the best, but the place was electric. It was electric. What an atmosphere. It's been a long time since I've been in an atmosphere like that. And I thought it was good for boxing. It was good for DC, and the city was buzzing.
So in terms of obviously Tank Davis has been we just talked about it before we started recording. It's a process to get someone to that level. Um and he's proven the last several fights. This was his first fight, to mention, without Mayweather Promotions. So he fought under his sole GTD Promotions, which is his promotional banner. Um, but drawing a crowd of just under 20,000, a sellout for that arena, is very impressive. But in this day and age, Abe, and I wanted to get your take on this, because the pay-per-view market is so difficult to penetrate now, especially since like Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao left, consistently all those years ago. And, the digital age has, exploded even more than it had been. How, because Gervonta Davis has proven that he can draw in arenas. And he's also proven that he can draw in buys in certain aspects of his fights. But how do you think how fighter stays consistent with that? Because he's obviously his problem isn't, and I want to say it's necessarily a problem, but his issue isn't not drawing at arenas. He's proved that people will show up to his fights. But in a digital age, as we live in with all these streaming options, illegal streaming, how does somebody like him translate that into an extension into those buys in the pay-per-view market?
That's interesting that you would bring that up, because I've had this conversation. I actually did like 3-part series on nyfights.com with a digital content creator, director, a master of all trades when it comes to the digital world, is Jay Chandry from New York. And he brought up, he brings up points because he's all about the stream and everything else, the digital world. And when we talked about it, people aren't relying on the pay-per-view sales to make money anymore. The real money is made before the fight, and even after the fight. So with merchandising, the advertising money that's being paid prior to the fight itself. So during press conferences and during the lead up shoulder programming and all those commercials that are injected in there and all those sponsorships, that's where the real money's made. The pay-per-view is just kind of like an added bonus, especially during these times of the digital age. So I think he's good in that sense because he draws so much traffic digitally that he's probably banking more on that end than anything else.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So going to the actual fight, like I mentioned, you were in the arena. Who was your pick, or who were you leaning towards beforehand? What was your prediction before the fight?
So I wrote this for Fansided, and I literally said that Tank would stop him between the 8th and 9th round. I literally wrote that.
Come on, here we go.
Hey, hey, men lie, women lie, numbers and words don't. It's on Fansided.
It's published. It's already there. So.
It was there on Monday night.
I said you scroll down to the bottom and it says like edited on Sunday morning.
No, I actually did that. So, and I'm going to take it a step further. You're not going to believe me, but I said it was going to be a left hook that was going to do it.
Wow. Okay.
And so, because I seeing Garcia, I knew that he was the type of guy that sometimes just stays in the clinches too long. And so he wasn't doing that in the beginning of the fight. He was being smart. He was boxing well. But then as fatigue and confidence started settling in on both ends, he started getting in the clinches too long. Then he started getting hit with those big shots. And then his defense kind of, started not being as effective. And then all of a sudden he was getting hit with those clean left hooks to the chin and the head. And those add up. I mean, he took them clean, but it didn't mean that he wasn't affected by it. And then one of the rounds, I think the round before the stoppage, he was on shaky legs, bro. Shaky legs. And when the bell rang, if you recall, he was walking to like the wrong corner. Walking to the wrong corner, didn't know where he was at. And as soon as he sat down, he was talking to his coach, Bob Santos, and I already knew it was over. If it wasn't over right away, they would have thrown the towel.
What was your because Gervonta Davis was up on the scorecard at the time of the stoppage, 79-73 twice and 78-74. Did you agree with that?
No. What
was your personal scorecard if you were taking score?
I would have had Garcia up by 2 rounds.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I
thought he was boxing pretty good too. I mean, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if he was up, but I thought it was a lot closer than those cards.
Yeah, and there was a lot of folks on the media row that had something similar. They had either Garcia up like that, or it was like neck and neck. But they didn't have Garcia only winning 1 round or only winning 2 rounds like those judges had it. Like, there's no way.
Now, how do you just to kind of put a little bit more analysis on how you look at fights and score fights, because some people obviously score for a power puncher. You're like, oh, okay, well, his punches were more powerful, more effective, but this guy outlanded him more. He just didn't have the power and the effect that his opponent did. How do you look at it like that?
I think it just really depends on the fight, right? Like, me personally, like ring generalship, goes a long way. So, who's controlling the round? Who's being more effective? Whether they're landing bombs or they're just landing consistent combinations, because not everybody's a power puncher, right? So, basically, who's controlling the round is who gets the round for me. I'm not one to give somebody a round just because they landed 1 punch at the end of the round that was clean. What about the other 2 minutes and 55 seconds, right? So I think it just depends, and it's hard sometimes doing it live because you don't get all the angles, right? So on TV it's a little easier because all the advanced camera views, but when you're seeing it live, there's blind spots obviously, so you could only go off of what you could see.
What was your take on because at least on the television broadcast, there's the cameras in the corner of the fighters. You can kind of hear what they're saying, in between rounds and all that stuff. At certain points, it seemed on TV that Tank was kind of looking like, even though he still fought well, he got the win, but he was looking around for advice in his corner, and like he didn't know who to listen to. They ended up figuring it out, but you can see he was kind of maybe like, okay, oh, do I look? Oh, what do you say? Or what do you think? Or I don't know if you guys were made aware of that since you guys were on ringside right there, but did you hear about that? And if you did, what did you think?
Well, you can see that. So where we were sitting at, and you look across, you could see where Tank was sitting, but then above on the scoreboard, you can see the camera they were having in the corner, and you saw some of that. I think with Tank, he's done that in the past. Normally with Mayweather back there, right? And kind of give him instructions. He doesn't have that this time. So maybe he did that out of like habit. And then not realizing that, like Floyd ain't there, and just kind of I don't know if that's such a great thing to do. But it works for him. So, I guess you don't you don't stop it, right? If it's working for you. So but I don't really like it, and hopefully he can fix that.
Abe, do you think Gervonta has an underrated boxing IQ?
100%. 100%. And I think his chin is underrated too, because he's gotten hit with some shots in his fights and he's taken them. But I think that his boxing IQ is definitely underrated. He is consistently thinking in there, and you can tell just by like the feints that he does, certain shifts. He's always kind of like testing his opponent, right? Like seeing if the opponent bites on certain instances. and what they bite on, what they don't bite on. And what they bite on, it may not be something that he capitalizes right then and there, but he just kind of takes a mental note and goes for it later on, if that makes sense.
Do you think the only person to beat Gervonta Davis is Gervonta Davis?
Didn't he say that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I think he's getting to the point where he has to fight the big names, right? Or the more known names. And with that is going to come a certain level of skill. And I think that we still have to see, right? Because up to, his last two fights, he really hadn't gotten that competition like that. So now he's facing competitive guys. So I think the ruling is still out, and we have to wait and see.
We need him to take the Floyd Mayweather path, not the Adrian Broner path.
Yeah, 100%. But I think that's coming because he knows that everybody's just, they don't want to see him fighting, just the Mario Barrios is right. They don't want that. Like they want him to fight like legit guys.
So how many times did he miss weight? Twice?
Uh, he was, I think, after winning the title, when he went across the pond, he had missed it, and then
He missed it at the one I was at, the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor. He was overweight on the undercard of that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he has that problem anymore because he has money now and he has people that cook for him and stuff like that. I think back then he was still getting money and he was doing it the way he only knows how to do it. But I haven't noticed that being an issue recently in the last like 2 years.
We talk about the chin of Gervonta Davis, but I feel that on that night, Hector Luis Garcia, even though it was a TKO stoppage, and he probably could have been knocked out in the next subsequent rounds after that, at least up until that point, I think he showed that he had a pretty good chin as well because he was getting with Tank hits hard. I mean, what was your opinion on press row right there?
Yeah, no, 100%. And we also got to remember that Hector Luis Garcia is a 130-pound champ.
Exactly.
He's fighting at 135. And so for him to be fighting north of his weight class and taking the shots that he was taking them well. But obviously his body was telling him, hey, this is like a step too far, right? In regards to punch resistance. Maybe we need to, take it back down to 130 where we're at our max level.
What did you think, Abe, of some of the media? And I don't know whether you saw what Teddy Atlas said, but people jumping on straight away and calling him a quitter.
Yeah, so I don't agree with that. This is my thing. I will compare it to how the military used to look at people with mental health issues, right? 15, 20 years ago, you were like outcasted, right? You were like, oh, this guy, whatever. Nowadays, you're not because there's facilities and services available to people that have those issues. I think that boxers are more conscious of what's going on and are less willing to raise the risk of their livelihood than in years past. And I think that he was looking at it like he could have gotten really hurt, right? Like real bad. And for what? What to last another 30, 45 seconds? I mean, at that point, it's not worth it. He's still a champ, and he knew when to fold him. So I don't necessarily like label him as a quitter. Just think that he was thinking about his future, probably his family, and what was best for his livelihood.
It's funny, isn't it? Because as fans, if we can't see it, we tend to think that people are faking it. If the guy's not stood there, covered in blood with a big gash, we're all like, oh, he quit.
Yeah, I mean that's unfortunate, right? Because can anyone look at another human being and say, hey, they got mental health issues? just by looking at him. You can't, right? So it's a little bit unfair, to throw that label on him. Um, I don't agree with it. I would say that he was looking out for his best interests as far as his future, his career, and didn't want to wind up in a hospital for a few days.
And it's funny because it was only a handful of weeks ago, we were complaining because Derek Chisaro's corner didn't pull him out. And now we're complaining when they chose the right decision when he told his coach, I can't see out of my right eye.
Yeah, and good for Bob Santos to be like, hey man, all right, let's call it. Let's call it. We'll live to fight another day.
Mm-hmm.
Because who knows? Who knows if that guy steps out of that next round, what that knockout punch does to him? It could have permanently damaged him for the rest of his life. So you just don't know. I think people need to start looking at things differently.
You come out for the next round with one eye against one of the pound for pound biggest punches in boxing.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Every time, I don't know if you guys remember the second fight between Margarito and Cotto, I believe 2011, when they fought on HBO. They had the whole face off with Max Kellerman and stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen it or remember watching it, but every time this issue comes up in boxing, because it comes up a couple of times a year usually, especially on the higher profile fights, I always think about that fight because before they did the fight, they had the face off. Kellerman was in the middle, Margarito, Cotto, and Max Kellerman asked like both of them, what are you willing to risk to get this fight, to win this fight? And when he asked Margarito, and Margarito says in Spanish that he's willing to die in the ring to get this victory. Like that's how much he wants it. And then Kellerman asked Cotto, he was like, how do you compete with that? He's like, this guy's saying he's willing to die in the ring to win a fight. And Cotto's like, he's stupid. It's because the contrast is there. And Cotto's like, why would I want to die in the ring? He's like, I have a family. He's like, he's like pretty much saying I'll live to fight another day. He's like, but it's funny to see both of those attitudes because those are the attitudes that we see in a combat sport. There's personalities that have Margarito, like, no, I'm willing to go all out, even though I know I'm going to probably get hurt or, unfortunately, God forbid, die or something like that. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go out on my shield. And then there's people like Cotto who say, like, no, for what? He's like, if I know something bad's coming, why wouldn't I stop it? But it's I think that's just going to be how fighters are, and I think, like Abe said, it's been a lot more prevalent in the subsequent years with this next generation of fighters where, maybe like Hector Garcia, who did that and who probably thought, you know what, like I'm hurt. If I go back out there, I'm definitely going to lose, but I'll probably get hurt even more. So I'm just going to stop it. But it's just interesting. Every time this comes up, I always think about that Cotto Margarito, and it's on YouTube. So if you guys want to watch it or any of the listeners, it's hilarious because both of those guys going at it is always going to be funny to me. So
yeah, no doubt.
But focusing on Hector Garcia, there's been talk. I don't know talk, but I saw some people kind of mentioning Leo Santa Cruz at 130. I'm assuming Hector Garcia has maybe got a PBC deal now, so they're under the same promotional banner. Well, what would you think about that fight, Abe?
That's a good fight. I think that I think they would definitely go at it because Leo Santa Cruz is not this huge power puncher, so I think Garcia would take more risk and be in the trenches more. So I like that fight a lot. I think it would be a fan-friendly fight. Definitely a Carson, California fight for sure.
That'd be sweet. Yeah, you got to come back out for that one, man.
Yeah, maybe. For sure.
For sure. And now focusing on Tank Davis. So there's this, I guess, this gray area's confusion about the whole Ryan Garcia fight. Both broadcast partners, DAZN and Showtime, and their respective representatives, made some type of announcement saying, "Oh yeah, there was a deal reached," but then subsequent information came out that, okay, there's not really like a signed paperwork yet, but, it seems like the broadcast partners kind of reached some type of middle ground. So that's a big obstacle to get over. But they're looking at April. Ryan obviously tweeted after the fight, and Tank Davis said, he wants it in April as well. What is the percentage that we do get that fight in April?
Oh man, there's a lot of different things going on with that. So Tank after the fight, post fight, he was like, yeah, there hasn't been any contract signed yet. But he did admit, he was like, hey, everything we threw at Ryan, he agreed to. So no one can say that, Ryan's ducking or whatever the case may be, because it came out of his mouth out of Davis's mouth that that Ryan agreed to pretty much everything, and even stuff that they didn't think that he would agree to, he did. So that's basically telling you how much he wants to fight, right? With the news of Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr. being on PBC pay-per-view in April as well, it's tough. I don't know if they do a back-to-back weekends of pay-per-view, the PBC. So that's tough. That's tough to say. The only way that happens is if Spence and Thurman's on Fox, and Tank and Ryan is going to be on Showtime. But even then, I just don't see them doing back-to-back pay-per-views. Now, the more important thing is that court case in February for Tank. What happens with that? Does it get pushed back again? Does it actually go to trial? Does it get settled out of court? That is going to be very important on deciding whether this fight happens or not. April seems real soon, though. I personally believe that a fight of that magnitude, they should take 6 months from the fight date, and in those 6 months do like 2 months of promo and 3 to 4 months of camp or whatever. Because I think that fight can be so big and cross over so much that they should seize the opportunity instead of trying to go for the quick money, because they're gonna make a lot of money anyway. But instead of going for the quick money, really do some promoting, getting on those platforms that is gonna further solidify their profiles. Brian Garcia, being on a late show, Tank Davis, being on whatever programming that's hot. Those type of things. I think if they do that like that, they'll do it right. April just seems too soon for me. I'm not so sure and convinced that it happens in April. The only way it happens in April is if they tell Tank he's got to do jail time, and they schedule that jail time, after the fight. That's the only way I see that April happening. But even then, like, what day do you put it? You can't put it at the end of April because Canelo's fighting, Cinco de Mayo weekend.
Yeah.
And then you do it at the beginning of April, and you have 2 pay-per-views in the same month, which are both going to be, $80. That's a tough sell. So I don't know. Percentage-wise, I'm going to give it 40%.
So not even a majority.
I'm going to give it 40%.
So do you think it's wise? Because I thought it was unwise. I think we talked about it, Mike, when it happened. For Ryan to, because he was, there was reports that he was supposed to fight Marcito Hesta, Golden Boy stablemate, also this month. And I thought that was a good idea. I was like, oh yeah, both of them get a fight in, and then they meet April, May, June, or whatever. And then Ryan, for one reason or another, said he didn't want to do that. He's like, no, I'm just going to train for Tank and I'll wait for that. Do you think it's wise for Ryan to take a fight in between, if you think it's not going to happen in April?
It really just depends on what the situation is. If the fight is going to be pushed back to, like, let's say the court thing happened and they're like, hey, you got to do 4 months or whatever. And so if the fight is now scheduled for, let's say, December, right? yes, he would probably take a fight before that. He would have to, and so he'd take a fight in April, May, whatever, and then come back in December. I wasn't really like too hard on him for not taking the Mercito Hesta fight because he fought twice last year anyway, right? He fought twice last year. Ryan did, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't see that being like a ring rust issue. But if they can't make the fight for April, yes, he's definitely gonna have to take a fight between.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I I, I don't know why he pulled out or canceled on the Hesta fight because I thought, oh, okay, Hesta's a smaller guy. Ryan's got the reach, he's got the height. Hesta. I mean, Hesta could fight. It's a good fight. He gave Linares a good fight a couple years ago and all that. But I thought, okay, Ryan should be a good win for Ryan. So I thought he should have taken it, but maybe he was just he wanted to be so focused on Tank, which I understand. Um, if you had to choose, I mean, because you said 6 months, but then you mentioned December. Ideally, if it happens this year, what month are we looking at?
Again, it just depends on everything that's going on. If stuff happens with Tank and he's got to do some stuff or whatever, I think that it's a best case scenario July, worst case scenario December.
And I know you've been one of the people in the media because I've always noticed it, and you've been saying this for a long time. You've never wavered on it, saying that Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia is the biggest fight in boxing, especially from a pay-per-view standpoint. You think that'll sell the best out of any current fight that can be made, which includes Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. Am I right?
100%. So that is the biggest commercial fight that can be made. People that are outside of boxing know who Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis is. Not the same amount of people know who Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence is.
You're bigger than a heavyweight, though. I'm talking like obviously the biggest would be like Fury, AJ.
Fury, AJ in the UK, right?
But you're just talking pay-per-view, right? Pay-per-view numbers.
Yeah. No. I'm just talking about like commercial success. Because commercial success is pay-per-view and also ticket sales, all the different type of revenues that come in. Fury Joshua, obviously, right? That's a mega fight in the UK. But here domestically, Ryan and Tank is the biggest one. It's bigger than Spence Crawford. Because Spence Crawford, they disappear from life every time they fight. Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis are in the public eye. Pop culture know who these guys are. Mm-hmm. Tank Davis's fight against Rolando Romero, freaking Madonna was in the house.
That was wild.
Bro, come on, man. Like, I can't make this up. These guys know exactly what to do, how to do it, how to keep their name in the current market, in the current digital world. They know how to maneuver in that space. That's why their shit is going to be the biggest fight out there.
Who do you say would be the A side? Like, who gets the big locker room? Who walks second? Who's on the left side of the poster?
I would have to say Tank. I would have to say Tank, only because he's had more opportunities to be the headline at bigger venues than Ryan has. Ryan has done big numbers, but more recent than, Tank has done it through a gradual amount of time, and he has the track record, right? And I don't think that Ryan would trip about that, honestly. I think he wants to fight. Like, he don't care about all that other stuff. He just wants to fight, but he wants to also be compensated the right way too.
Right. Davis puts more bums in seats.
I would say yes, but we also have to look at where, right? So Davis can do that in a few different places. We haven't seen Ryan do it in a few different places, right? And so until he can do that, then he can't really say that they're on that same drawing power level. Now, let's say Tank doesn't doesn't, for whatever reason, the fight happens in December, whatever, and then he's got to take a interim fight. Well, let's see Ryan sell out the Madison Square Garden in New York or the Barclays Center, somewhere that's not California and Texas,
Yeah.
to see how, how strong his drawing power is. And, he might surprise some folks, but we got to see it though. Tank has proven that he can go to Atlanta, go to Baltimore, go to LA, go to Vegas, and do really big numbers.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think I agree with you when you started saying that, when I started seeing you post that saying it's going to be the biggest commercial fight that can be made, I started thinking about it. I was like, man, I think he's right. Because like you said, they're both connected to pop culture. They have their respective audiences who their audiences have audiences. And I look at it as these guys are going to both come to the table, and you're going to have guys like look at Jake Paul tweeted about the fight and said, "Oh, Ryan will knock out Tank." Jake Paul's going to be in attendance for that fight. Logan Paul's going to be in attendance for that fight. Those two guys together are going to be talking about that fight on their podcasts, on each of their mediums that they have. And Ryan obviously is in the social media influencer, entertainment side of things. He's going to have all these people connected to him be talking about it. Free marketing for them. And Tank Davis, same thing. He's got his audiences in the hip hop world, in the rap world, athletes. It's the same thing. And you're right. I think, at least in the United States, there's nobody current right now that you can put together as opponents who can bring that to the table. Right? Am I looking at it right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll take it even a step further. If you go on like the Google Analytics and trends, Tank and Ryan are like the top two highest searched fighters out there, period.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the reality of the situation, aside from like Canelo, but them two they right there.
It's 2-fight deal, right? One on DAZN, one on Showtime.
I didn't hear that.
Where'd you hear that? I didn't even hear that.
I
Fight Disciple said it today.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. I heard there was Showtime for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if like there's a second fight on DAZN, but initially they said that it was Showtime had the main broadcast, but they were going to allow DAZN to be able to distribute it as well. So like it'll be Showtime pay-per-view, but if people are a DAZN subscriber and maybe they get a discount, I don't know, on it through DAZN, then they can watch it through that too. So I'm assuming that they'll have like a mini broadcast team doing it for them too.
That does make sense though, at least from the DAZN side, like we talked about. Tank Davis has proven to be the A side in this, even though Ryan does bring a lot of eyeballs and money into this. I feel like from a business perspective, the DAZN team would say, look, we gave you guys all this, already, but at least let us get the rematch. The only question is there a rematch if Tank loses, or is there a rematch if Tank wins? If he wins, is he going to say, no, I don't want a rematch? Or if he loses, like, oh no, I want a rematch, or is it a rematch regardless of who wins, who loses?
Yeah. All things that have to be on a contract that they have to actually sign.
Right. Yeah. The craziness of boxing, that we see on a daily basis over here. But definitely.
Remember the old WWE when they'd sign the contract in the ring? They should do that, and then you just have like fucking Ryan goes to put him through the table afterwards. And
well, Ryan did mention at one point when they were like negotiating, he suggested a live feed of them negotiating the contract.
You know what? I think that's brilliant. Like, take advantage of it.
We're almost going to that, right? Because they do live feeds of purse bids at times, right? So we're almost going towards that.
Yeah, and look at how many people are interested. Especially like hardcore boxing fans and us as media, how many people are interested in the purse bid process. It's very intriguing to people, like when Triller came in and got a Teofimo Lopez fight, like where did that come from, and then we had Marv Nation pop in for the Regis Prograis fight. It's like, it's very intriguing because it's kind of, and then I think Al Dawson wrote the piece on WWE, Stephanie McMahon, saying that she, they might be interested in boxing, kind of jumping into it. And then when he was on after that, we kind of touched on that. And he also mentioned, he's like, how crazy would it be if, we're all watching this purse bid, tweets and stuff, somebody covering it, and they're just like, holy crap, Stephanie McMahon just walked in, for like a purse bid between Wilder and like whoever or something, like what marketing that could be, right?
100%. I mean, but they've always kind of like flirted with the idea, right? They were hired to do the Amanda Serrano Katie Taylor fight week. So that's why you saw them, doing interviews. The wrestlers were doing interviews with Serrano and Taylor and stuff. So they've dipped their toes in there, had Tyson Fury in there, stuff. So they've dipped their toes in there, and I think that they're interested in doing it, especially because they have that connection through Fox.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if something like that occurred in the future.
Yeah, that'd be definitely insane. All right, moving on. I know we spent a lot of time on that, but that's Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia.
Hang on.
Oh, you got one more?
Yeah.
What do you got?
I want to put him on his toes since he's good. He's like the oracle here today. So Abe, the fight goes ahead. Who wins? Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia. You're not getting off that lightly, Abe.
How did we forget that?
Wow, man. Speed versus power, right?
Hey, we'll have you on. We'll have you on again before. If you can change your mind, you can say something right now and change your mind later.
Speed versus power. Man. I don't think I could call it right now.
Oh no. Cut him off, Danny. Exit.
I don't think I could call it right now. I mean, honestly, it kind of gives me Sugar Ray Hagler vibes, right? You got the power southpaw against the speedy
That's an
conventional guy.
Comparison, yeah.
So I think Gervonta knocks him out.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's a big people keep saying, but Ryan's so big, but it's a small target. He's got a smaller target to hit. But Gervonta loves the big target, more torso, everything to hit. He can just get in there on the inside. And the problem is what's the best way to keep off a short opponent that needs to come in? A jab. Ryan never jabs.
Yeah,
it's literally a rangefinder.
But I think my thing is, and you saw this on Saturday night, was Garcia was able, Hector Luis, he was able to establish a certain distance that allowed him to successfully jab, but made Tank lunge on some of the occasions. And when Tank lunges, he's a little wild. And I think that at those moments, Ryan could definitely counter him with that quick left hook that he won't see coming. And then, how does he react to that? Because, you react differently to the punch that you don't see. So it would be very interesting to see it. I don't know if I'd be quick to say that Tank knocks him out. I think that it's a great fight, and I just want to see it.
Oh, so you're going Ryan then?
I'm going 50-50. I'm hoping for a great fight and then we see it again.
Yeah. I hope Ryan trains how Teofimo Lopez trained for the Lomachenko fight, because obviously he trained very, very hard for that. He hired a lot of people for his camp, nutritionists, and obviously up until this point, you can tell that's probably the best Teofimo Lopez has looked. Because after that, it's kind of been a little different for him, but I think Ryan is definitely going to train very, very hard.
I think you'll see the best of both of them. I honestly believe that.
Yeah. Hang on, one more, Danny. One more. So over 1 million pay-per-view buys.
Ooh.
Last time I can't even. What was the last one? The last Mayweather Pacquiao.
No. Tyson Roy Jones on Triller. I think so. I think it was. Yeah.
No. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, Tyson
That's
and Roy
true.
Jones.
Yeah, I think
Triller.
Tyson Roy Jones on the Triller.
But you know what's funny though is that the people that purchased that and were intrigued by that,
Casual
that
fans.
casual fans that don't watch really boxing like that, would be the same ones that probably would press that buy button on the remote.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, of course it's gonna get pirated like crazy, but I think it has a strong chance of doing that.
I
I
think so,
really,
close to a mil.
yeah,
The
yeah.
only thing I wished, which it seems like it's even more improbable now, and it seemed like it could have happened up until a couple months ago, was that Mayweather and De La Hoya could be a part of the promotion.
Yeah.
Imagine those two up on the
Exhibition.
stage next to their fighters, and all these pictures. They have their own reach as well. It's like, oh man, like,
But you know what? They don't need them. They
no,
don't
they
need
don't
them.
need them. But like, why would
Wouldn't
they're gonna?
hurt.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah,
It wouldn't hurt.
yeah,
And when's the last time you saw Mayweather and De La Hoya together like that?
yeah.
It. That's what I was looking forward to. I was like, man, I'm just looking forward to those interviews and like sitting next to each other or standing next to each other. And man, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna happen now that Tank is gone from Mayweather Promotions. But you never know. Mayweather could be in attendance for that fight. He is a fan.
He will be in attendance for that fight. I'm
Yeah.
almost positive he will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving
Jesse
on.
Vargas will be there.
Was that?
Jesse Vargas will be there.
Oh,
Yeah. We have this I don't know if we talked about it, but we have this long-standing joke about Jesse Vargas. Is not calling him a joke, but there was a time over the last several years where I'd go or Mike would go, or going back to like 2014 or something, like we'd go to events all over California and Vegas, media events, press conferences, workouts, fights. It didn't matter the promoter. Jesse Vargas was always there. He always showed up, and I was all the time. And you could tell he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna try to get some media, get some press." And I was like, "Man, I'll give him credit. He shows up and tries to keep his name out there. He was everywhere, man."
And that's what you're supposed to do, right? But there's some fighters that won't do that, right? But he was out there, and he got the DAZN fights that some extra ones that he probably shouldn't have gotten, but he got them.
Yeah,
paid nice.
Yeah, he definitely got paid nice. Moving on that card in the co-main event, Jaron Boots Ennis remains undefeated at 30-0 with the 12-round unanimous decision win, which was surprising to a lot of people. Over Karen. All right, Abe, help me pronounce this. I wasn't. Mike, you want to give it a shot?
Nah.
Because I heard it on the broadcast and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give that one a shot.
I would say Chukadzian.
We'll just keep it like
we'll go for that.
We'll go with Karen.
He beat a Karen.
He'd be the Karen. He'd be the Karen. And this is for the IBF interim welterweight title. First off, Abe, were you surprised that this went 12 rounds?
Yes. I didn't think it was going to go 12 rounds, but I felt like Boots was trying to do too much in that ring. Felt a little pressure of a lot of people from Philly in the house. I didn't like that he was chasing him around the ring. He did a horrible job of cutting off the ring. And I just felt like he had an off night. He certainly had an off night.
He was exposed. Jaron Ennis is never going to be any good.
Yeah,
what do you think? Following that, obviously he got the victory, which is still good. But does this make a potential fight, even though it won't happen next or maybe not anytime soon? But does this make a potential fight with somebody like Virgil Ortiz a little bit more intriguing? Because a lot of people for the longest time have said, I think a lot of more reputable people in the boxing media have chosen Ennis as winning that fight. Does that become a little closer in the odds now?
I let's see how Virgil looks against Stanonius first before we make that. Right. Yeah. It's a good fight. But if he comes out successful, I feel like a Boots and Virgil fight. I'm gonna compare it to another older fight. He gives me Chavez Whitaker vibes. Right? Because Ennis is, really good speed, distance, jab, and stuff like that. Virgil, he may have a hard time with that style.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and who's training him now? Like, this still is it his father? Like, did they bring somebody else on? Like, we don't know what's going on in that corner. We don't know what he's gonna look like. He's not with Robert Garcia, so like, what's happening with him?
You know
Is
who?
he?
Go ahead.
I was gonna. Is he gonna be able to make 147
You know
safely?
what? I don't think he is anymore. We've talked about that as well. I think he's gonna have to move up before he even gets a legitimate title shot. His body's just not gonna let him stay at that weight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
You
is
know?
unfortunate because it seems like every time, even starting at 135, I believe it was, every time he was on the cusp of getting a title shot, he'd have to move up because his body was growing.
Yeah. And I think it's
So,
gonna happen again.
yeah,
Yeah.
but 154 is going to become very crowded.
Oh yeah. All these fighters are all gonna move up at the same time.
Yeah, it's crowded now, but it's going to be even more crowded later.
Yeah, definitely. But Ennis obviously uh gets the interim welterweight title for the IBF here. So Ennis is also a big guy. I mean, is he bigger than Ortiz in terms of like mass and everything?
I think as far as like he's got the frame. He's got a big frame.
Yeah.
Long torso. I think Virgil's a little more compact, right? But I think Ennis got him. He's just a little leaner, long torso kind of guy, but he's got the long arms, right? And he can pick you apart from the outside. So I think Ennis can still, be at 147 for a while, but I don't know about Virgil though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely tough because I think when was it? A couple years ago a couple fights ago when Virgil, he had to. Oh, it was they were supposed to fight at the Galen Center in USC, and then Alexis Rocha and Blair Cobbs I think headlined instead because Virgil had some issues making the weight and some medical conditions right there. That's when I knew I was like, okay, I don't think he's gonna get a title shot before his body mate forces him to move up. That's when I knew I was like, yeah, there's no way. So
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say real quick. I'm sorry. If you see the picture when he was sparring Castaño last January, February, he looked like he's bigger than Castaño.
yeah, exactly.
Since we're touching on the 147 division, it got announced today, that Spence looks like he's going to be facing Thurman at 154. Do you think that is just a fight in the interim, or do you think that's, Spence testing the waters and moving up to 154? Because then, 3 of the belts at 147 will become vacant, and that's probably an amazing chance for Virgil Ortiz to pick one up if he obviously gets through Stanionis, and for Boots as well.
I think it's definitely a testing of the water situation, because if Spence feels comfortable, he's just going to stay there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he makes the move right away officially until they figure out the Jermell Charlo situation. He's not going to fight Charlo, and so
that'd be a great fight though.
yeah, I think that there's going to be that domino effect between the three. It's going to be Jamal moving to 68, Jamel moving to 60, and then Spence moving to 54.
Yeah. I'm sure Al Heyman has talked to them behind the scenes like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And they're like, okay.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you right now, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Me personally, I think Crawford versus Jamel Charlo is the better, more sellable fight, period.
Then Spence?
Over Crawford Spence?
Man, you're just full of opinions today, aren't you, Abe? You got Brian Davis as the biggest commercial fight in boxing, and now Crawford Charlo bigger than Errol Spence.
Yeah. Because of the personalities. The personalities, they both have like super dog in them, right? And they're not gonna give an inch for nothing. Spence is he got that southern draw. He's kind of a quiet, shy guy type of thing. And so although that fight, with him and Spence to the purists is the biggest one, right? But I just feel like this Crawford Jamel Charlo will gain the attention of like the casuals because they got that edge, right? And that competitive edge, and they talk a lot of shit. So think about that face off, bro. And you know how short temper, short-tempered Jamel Charlo is.
Yeah.
Well, that
You're
would
right.
I'm telling you, and then just stylistically, that's a great fight.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, what else you got whilst you're here?
You might as well just throw them all out there right now. Man. Well, moving on that card, Roman Villa gets the 26th win of his career with the majority decision win over Rashidi Ellis by scores of 114, 112 twice, and 113, 113. So this was Rashidi Ellis' second fight under the PBC banner after previously being with Golden Boy Promotions and separating from them, even though he handed Alexis Rocha the first defeat of his career. So I'm assuming this was a surprise to a lot of people on press row in the building. Abe, what'd you think about it?
It wasn't a surprise to me.
Uh-oh. Tell us why. Tell us why.
If you go on nyfights.com, you will see. So the story I did on Rashidi Ellis on the bottom, I put in there that, hey, Villa only had one decision in his record on his wins. All of his other wins were stoppages, TKO and KO.
Yeah.
Now, the one fight that went to the scorecards was his first fight in America. And so I mentioned all that, and I said, oh, by the way, he's promoted by Samson Boxing. And everybody knows that Samson Boxing, when it comes to getting that South American, Central American talent, whoever does his scouting, man, they should get a raise because he always gets the guys that nobody knows about, and they come in and they disrupt plans. And that's exactly what happened. Now, early in the fight, I was like, okay, Rashidi Ellis dominating. Some of the media folks that was sitting next to, they was like, yeah, hopefully he doesn't fade out late. So it was like around the 7th round, I think it was. I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. Ellis is, dominating. Come back. The guy was like, man, as soon as you left, Villa started pouring it on. I was like, what? But what you could see was that V was landing. He wasn't landing that much on top because he was slow, right? But he was landing body shots, and wearing them down, onesies and twosies. And then you could tell by the 6th, 7th round, Ellis stopped moving as much. He was leaning on the ropes more. He was staying inside more. And it was like, he's running out of gas. And then Villa caught him. He caught him, and it went 12 rounds. I believe wholeheartedly that he should have gotten the decision. But if he didn't get those 2 knockdowns, it'd be a draw, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was the difference.
Yeah.
So where do we see? Because I'm sure they thought, PBC was looking at and Showtime was looking at maybe Ellis, maybe Boots together in the future, and having them both be welterweights on the same card. That's very common with promoters. They put fighters in separate bouts because they're like, oh, okay, eventually these two are going to meet maybe later on this year or something. Did we see a rematch between Villa and Ellis later this year?
I don't know. I mean, that's what they want, but I would say this, it was supposed to be Ellis Boots next. That's not happening next. Now, for one of these pay-per-views, will they put Ellis and Villa as like one of the undercards? Maybe. He won't be on the televised portion. He'll probably be on the Showtime one or whatever. And because it was a good fight, people will remember it and will tune in, right, to the stream so that they can get those stream numbers up and generate the money. And you see what I'm saying? So like those type of things. So, but I don't see Ellis getting a significant fight this year.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah. Him and Ortiz, man. They're just, Boots it's crazy because Boots is in the PBC stable with all those PBC fighters. And obviously Virgil's on the outside, but they're both kind of like in weird positions where like, oh, well, the belts are kind of tied up and they, it's hard for them to get these title shots.
But he's not. Boots is not. So Boots and Brandon Lee are Duncan and Duncan boxing.
Okay.
But they have an exclusive TV deal with Showtime.
Oh, okay.
So, because Showtime, works for PBC, they put them on the cards or whatever. But that's kind of been the problem because D&D owns Ennis and Brandon Lee. And so trying to negotiate with them through Showtime and trying to do that, you know, more hands in the cookie jar, you start, running into problems when it comes to trying to book fights. So that's why, like, you see Ennis and Brandon Lee, they got all these fights, almost 30 fights, and haven't gotten like the real big fight yet because
Yeah.
of that.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. And Duncan, is that Cameron Duncan?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that's it's Cameron. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, yeah,
Cameron.
yeah. I think he was like a manager for a long time and all
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
yeah. Well, that makes sense because I thought I was like, there has to be something going on behind the scenes for Ennis not to. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But that's why we have guys on like you, Abe, to give us those tidbits like that.
Yeah.
All right, and another one. Demetrius Andrade gets I think this was his PBC debut under the
It,
PBC banner.
it
Gets a
was.
unanimous decision win over 10 rounds by scores of 100 to 89 on all three scorecards over Desmond Nicholson. All right. He gets a lot of criticism. Andrew gets a lot of criticism for his fighting style and not kind of showing a little bit more pop. What did you think?
Very sloppy performance.
Mm,
It was sloppy. I think that he got the job done. It was just rough in there. Like some of those spots, he almost was fighting like a club fighter, right?
yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, he got the job done, got the knockdowns, I guess, but I don't know if I want. I don't know if I want to see him with a big name, right? Like him against Caleb Plant might put everybody to sleep if that were to, you know what I mean? So I guess him and Benavidez would be a good fight, but if they're gonna do something, I guess now is the time to do the Charlo fight at 68. But I don't know. I just don't know what you do with him.
Yeah.
And he's what, 35 years old?
I think just about, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I guess you have to throw him in there with somebody. Maybe he fights the loser of Benavidez Plant.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, he had the problem with the zone. Eddie was trying to maneuver him into some type of big name fight, but then he would still get the criticism. Um, and then he goes, he gets out of his contract, or him and Eddie Hearn don't, renegotiate, and then he goes to PBC and makes his debut for PBC, and then he's still in the same spot. I mean, it sucks, but he's luckily he's made some pretty good money over his career. At least he could say that. But in terms of getting the big fights, I don't know. You think he's going to be one of those fighters that just never lands a big name in his career?
I think they're gonna feed him the big name next. It's gonna be. I have to assume that it's gonna be the loser of the Benavides Plant. He's gonna get next, and then they'll figure out. Because he was like, hey, that the punching power, he felt the difference from 60 to 68. So I think that he gets the loser of Plant Benavides, and then they figure it out from there.
All right, Abe. Uh, really quickly, we just want to get your quick reaction because this just has been reported, and this isn't even boxing, but this is huge news. Stephen Mulhausen of The Zone has reported that WWE has been sold to Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. He says that the company will go back to being private, and it's unknown if Vince McMahon will return as the head of creative, but he's expected to be in some type of role.
Mm.
What's your reaction to that? Because that's pretty big news. We were talking about WWE going into boxing. This is big news.
Wow. That's interesting, right? Because it's almost like they've been setting up that deal the last few years, doing the huge events in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, right? And selling that out. This has been in the works for a minute. I guess where how is that going to affect their network deals that are going to be coming up? And is Saudi going strictly to back to WWE Network, right, where they were streaming solely their content? So I don't know. Interesting times. I tell you what, though, love him or hate him, Vince McMahon or the people that are surrounding him, they have always been innovative. I should remind everybody that the WWE network was really like the first people to have their own app streaming service on
Yeah.
their own.
Because I think they came out like 2014, 2013. It was
Yeah.
right after, like, I mean, who else? It was them and like Netflix.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but as far as like sports entertainment, like they were like really the first ones, and there was some trial and error. There were some mistakes and stuff like that, but they were really the ones that brought the idea of incorporating their whole library, making it international. So Vince McMahon has always been like on the cutting edge of what's next. So I feel like if he did this deal, then he's on to some next level thing that we just don't know about just yet.
Yeah.
I always wondered if like Matchroom were going to do that. You know, Matchroom expand. They take themselves to Italy, Spain, Australia, Great Britain. They're obviously over here. Will it get to a point where they're popular enough that where their DAZN deal ends, where they can just be like, you know what, we're going to be Matchroom subscription. They already have darts, pool, snooker, stuff like that, popular sports. Obviously in the UK, have the boxing. They've already dominated all these different territories worldwide. $10 a month plus pay-per-views on top, kind of like the WWE style. I just do wonder if 5-10 years from now, are they going to be a big enough commodity where they could do that?
Yeah, but you got to have the capital to do that. Vince
True.
McMahon and WWE, they make, billions of dollars a year, right? Like, these guys, it's a money making machine over there. I don't know if Matchroom was making $1 billion a year like WWE is. And even then they were, they lost millions of dollars initially on the WWE network and trying to get that thing running. So I don't know if too many companies that could afford to do that.
Now Kinahan's gone. He can't do it, right?
Yeah, that's nuts, man. Hey, but look at somebody like a new player in town, AEW.
Yeah.
Doesn't that give them a little bit more power, especially in the US? In the US, with I feel like that's only going to help them.
It depends on if WWE goes strictly to streaming, or like if they're gonna come off network, then of course that gives AEW the opportunity to potentially be on Fox, or to get TNT and or USA to pony up more money and stuff. So yeah, of course, I think that's a great opportunity for them, and I don't think that they're tripping, getting the crumbs from WWE. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think they're tripping about that.
Yeah, that's insane, man. That's insane. I didn't think
Yeah.
this was going to happen this quickly, but I
Yeah,
guess
that whole thing was packaged real neat. That was a whole domino effect.
yeah.
One move after the other, and I'm pretty sure that there's still a few moves that are going to be announced in the next like 24 to 72 hours.
Yeah. That's nuts, man. Oh, I wonder what all the people who like jumped from company to company, like, back there or from there or whatever, like what they all think, like, oh man, I just got here, like that's
Yeah,
insane. That's
yeah,
insane.
and our buddy Greg Domino got a job over there, and hopefully he can keep
Yeah,
it.
he was with Showtime, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
and then he was with DAZN for a little bit. So
right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So he'd be somebody good to have on. We'll try to reach out to him. I'm sure
yeah.
when he leaves WWE, I'm sure he'll be open to interviews. As of right now, he'll probably lay low, but we'll definitely reach out to him.
No, he actually sent me the numbers from like the viewing numbers from John Cena's return at the end of the year, and it was like their biggest event of 2022 numbers wise, as far as TV is concerned.
Hey man, just shows you that he's been gone for a long time, but he's still, there's
Still
still
the
those
man.
guys that just hold they can hold court and they bring in the numbers,
Yeah, that's
the
right.
stars.
Yeah.
Brandon Lee gets a TKO in the fourth round over Diego Gonzalo Luque. What do you think about Brandon Lee's performance?
So my headline was, and people say that I was a little harsh on Brandon Lee. I said that he scored a mediocre TKO. I love me some Brandon Lee, right? I love watching him fight. I just feel like uh he took like a half a step back. Um, I feel like he should have gotten rid of this guy way sooner than what the guy lasted. Um, my my really big concern is that he keeps getting hit with these clean right hands over the top. Now, that almost knocked him out the last fight before that. This fight, the guy didn't have the punching power to really, get it on there, but he was landing those clean shots. And I'm like, does this guy not see this right hand coming? A lot of it's because his left hand is so low, when he's doing those combinations. But he keeps getting hit clean with that. And somebody at the next level is gonna take full advantage of that. And he's gonna be in deep trouble. But this is the thing. We already at a point where, hey, he needs to fight somebody top 3 right now, next. Like
Yeah.
training wheels are off. Dude's about to have 30 fights. Like, at what point do we stop the shenanigans and put him in with a live dog?
Right.
You know what I mean? He's not a contender, a prospect, whatever. Like, he needs to fight somebody legit next, and we need to see if he's really the right, if he really has the goods or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we talked about him and Ennis, essentially 30 fights, and they haven't really crossed into that threshold to get that big name, that significant fight yet. It sucks, but yeah, you're right. I think they both been at that point for a little bit now. Where like, hey, we need to move you up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then running off the card, is it Michael Ogundo? Did I say it right?
Ogundo. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think it
Michael
was
Ogundo
Ogundo.
gets the 17th win of his career. He's now 17-16 with the 4th-round TKO over the veteran Lamont Peterson. All right, Abe. Should Lamont Peterson have taken this fight, or do you think he should just maybe call it quits?
So Lamont reflexes looked okay the first 2 rounds, and I was like, okay. I mean, for his age, looked all right. But then it was like at the 3rd round, the wheels fell off the wagon.
Yeah.
And then it was all bad from there. I heard that he was a guy that was still owed a fight, right? Left on his contract. So that's what that was. I don't foresee him getting any more fights on the PBC, under the PBC banner in the future. And I think that he'll probably retire from here. I hope he retires.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's given us a lot of fights. He's been in some big fights with some big names over his career. I mean, if we just start naming his opponents over his career, I don't think we would stop for like the next hour. So
That's right.
yeah, he's definitely been in there with some killers.
Yeah.
And produced some great fights. Fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the January 14th, from the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, on ESPN. Efe Ajagba, 16-1, goes up against Stephen Shaw, 18-0, undefeated. Who wins this fight, Abe?
So it's funny because the odds got him like really close. I think Steven Shaw is gonna pull it out, but Efe's got that power, man, and he could turn your lights off. It's heavyweight, baby. Anything can happen. So, but I think Steven Shaw, wins, and then we see Efe Jaiba against Jared Anderson in the future or something.
And also on that card, Adam Lopez goes up against Abraham Nova, 16-3 versus 21-1. I actually think this is pretty good matchup. I mean, because I've seen these guys. I mean, I know we've all seen them, but I feel like I've seen these guys fight a lot here in the Southern California area. I know Adam Blue Nose Lopez, I think, trains out here in LA with Buddy McGirt. So, and he's been on the podcast before, so we've interviewed him, I think, twice in the past. What do you think about this fight?
I actually really like that fight. That's the one that I'm really looking forward to. I feel like this fight is like the Money in the Bank match in WWE with the briefcase, held up. And I feel like, this fight is to determine who gets pushed and who might, get the pink slip. And
that's a good way to look at it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Abraham Nova, can avoid getting hurt. Because it seems like the last couple of fights he's been getting like stunned or hurt in certain instances, and I'm like, it's kind of bringing some question marks. But and then he got knocked out, right? He got knocked out on at
I think
MSG.
yes, yes, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I think this is a good fight. They're gonna really put it on the line because I think that their contract is on the line. So um, you know, it's a contract held up on the top of the ring. Who wants it? So
yeah. 60-minute Iron Man match, right? We'll see. And then running off that card, Guido Vianello. I hope I said that right. 10-0-1 goes up against Jonathan Rice, 15-6-1. What's your take on this fight, Abe?
Johnny Rice, baby. I'm going with Johnny Rice. He's slightly the favorite. I'm going Johnny Rice.
And then we touched on obviously Thurman Spence at 154, which is I think that's the most intriguing detail of that whole potential matchup right there. Is that it's at 154? Like we said earlier, is it Spence testing the waters? Is it him saying, "Oh, my body, it's a little easier for me to go 154"? Crawford fight didn't happen. Forget it. I'm going to 154. You never know. But also, I don't think this has been reported. I think it's actually was announced. Lee Wood will be defending his WBA featherweight title against Mauricio Lara on February 18th in England. Matchroom Boxing announced earlier this week. Look, I don't know about you guys, but Lee Wood was just elevated to the full WBA champion, and his first title defense is against a killer like Mauricio Lara. You got to give him credit for that, regardless, because Lara has proven so far that he's a killer, right? What do you think?
Oh, I love that fight. I love that fight. It's gonna be fireworks. Yeah, love it. Too bad it's not gonna get like a prime time slot, right? Because it's gonna be UK, so it'll be in the mid afternoon. You said February what?
18th.
18th. So that's gonna be it should be after the Super Bowl weekend,
I think
right?
so. Yeah, the weekend
So
after.
yeah, it might get some attention there because there won't be college football anymore, just college basketball. I think it'll get some good traction, but I just wish it was in prime time so that it can get the real attention from the boxing fans. But I love that fight.
Yeah, that's an excellent fight. Lara's, he's one of those guys. And we see it every time, every now and again, where those fighters that just knock everybody out, and it's just like, well, they're producing entertainment and they're doing what they're supposed to do, but then the bigger names in the fight game in your division won't want to fight you because you're knocking everybody out. Like, I'm not gonna fight that guy. So it's like, well, should I stop knocking people out? It's yeah, Lara just and he just popped out of nowhere. A couple years ago we saw him in San Diego, right, Mike? He was at the Chocolatito card, I think, down there. So yeah, that was he's definitely on a roll there. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then ESPN has reported that I believe it is Robizi, Robizi,
Robizi.
Ramirez,
Yeah.
and Isaac Dogbe will meet in a featherweight bout with title implications on April 1st in Oklahoma. What do you think about that matchup, Abe?
Yeah, no, it's okay.
To filler.
It's a filler. I'm more so interested in seeing if the WBO recently ordered Kazuto Ioka versus Junto Nakatani.
Yeah.
I want to see that right now. This is the thing. I tell people all the time. Going from 112 to 115 is a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
When you start talking about those little guys, I want to see if Junto, if that move up is going to be too much for him.
Right. Yeah.
Those 3 pounds make a huge difference for whatever reason it does. But that's a great fight, and I want to be able to see that one.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, look at and you're right. I mean, the lower weight classes. I mean, obviously they've been getting a lot more attention ever since like the Superfly cards, and they've been held out here in LA for a lot with Tom Loeffler and 360 Promotions and HBO and all that. But we saw Bam Rodriguez move up to 115, and obviously was very impressive. But he chose to go back down to 112 as well. But yeah, those 3 pounds, it might not seem like a lot, but that's a big deal.
It's a big deal. That's
it really
right.
is a big deal. And then Jose Ramirez and Richard Comey, according to ESPN, have agreed to a fight for March 25th in Fresno, which is Jose Ramirez's backyard. What do you think about this fight? You think Ramirez is the likely favorite here?
Yeah, I don't know how Ramirez gets motivated for that fight, right? Like, Comey's a great dude, but I mean, what does he have left? I don't know. I don't. I I don't know if Ramirez can get up for that fight.
Yeah,
You know, um, I mean, it's a good payday for him. He's gonna make some good money. I guess he'll get up for it because of that. But
but
when he was on,
we talk about drawing power like we did earlier with Davis. Ramirez has shown that people will show up in that Fresno area for him.
yeah, for sure. But I mean, you sell 15,000 tickets, but it's not like you're selling them at a premium price either.
Yeah,
You know, people ain't paying $500 for no ringside tickets. You know what
yeah,
I mean? So, um, not saying that they can't afford it, but it's just the area that's in. People aren't looking to be paying that type of money for that type of stuff.
right.
So, um, I mean, it'll do a decent gate. I mean, I'm surprised that it happened because Ramirez was on IG Live with Regis Prograis and Ellie Setback, and he was basically saying that he wasn't going to fight Comey, and that what was being reported, weeks ago was incorrect, or it wasn't accurate. But here we are, he's fighting Comey.
Yeah,
So, sounds like it was, hey, you either fight Comey or you don't get a fight until the summer, and so.
that's probably what it was. Top Rank probably flexed their contract language, and it's like, hey, no, you need to fight. Like, we need to produce dates for ESPN. You're either gonna fight or yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sure that happens a
And,
lot.
and
We just don't see it.
yeah, and Ramirez just got married, and I'm sure that was expensive. So, why not get the payday, right? But it's tough because he was trying to defend his position with the whole prograde thing and telling everybody that he wasn't going to do something, and then weeks later, here we are, he's doing it. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Story of boxing, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, and nobody could say, oh, Abe is a hater or whatever. It's not like that. It came out of his mouth. He said it. It's on record. He said, "I'm not fighting Comey." That's that news is not accurate. He said that.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, when the broadcast partner of your promoter is the one reporting this, uh, seems like it's likely gonna happen. So
Yeah, 100%.
we will see. But Abe, obviously, we always appreciate you coming on here on the last round. I know it's been a while since we had you on, but I think the first time we probably had you on, you were still out here on the West Coast, so it was a little easier for us in terms of or easier for you in terms of the time change. But we know you're on the East Coast of the United States, so it's a little bit different. But we always appreciate you making time for us here. Go ahead before we sign off here. Go ahead and plug everything that you're on, and then obviously any new ventures that you recently joined. Go ahead. The floor is yours, man.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to you guys for having me on your show once again. It's always a pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a guest on your show. You can follow me on Twitter at AbeG718. I contribute to fansided.com. I am the managing editor at nyfights.com, along with contributing content there. And I also have my own audio podcast, the Boxing Rush Hour Show, on all audio platforms. So I appreciate all the support and look forward to the next time we can talk.
How about
You're
you?
on the Ring ratings panel now too. Don't forget to say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, the rings panel as well.
And your fortune telling business, Abe?
Here, let's end it on this. Let's end it on this. What's something that unexpected that will happen in the sport this year? We're at the beginning of the
Ooh.
year. What's something that you feel you could say that, like, okay, people might not expect this, or it might come out of left field, but you can go for it.
I think I already had said it with Crawford and Charlo. But you know what? I will say that in September we get Canelo Benavidez.
Oh, really? See,
I think that one finally happens.
Maybe. See, I want to get on board with that, but I don't think that happens this year either. But if you're right again, man, I'm like, what the hell? Yeah,
and they do it and they do it in Mexico.
Oh, that'd be huge, man. That'd be huge. I think it's either a Texas fight or it's a Mexico fight. Yeah. I definitely see that. Yeah, that's huge. That is definitely huge. But yeah, back again. First episode of 2023. We definitely appreciate you guys. Once again, big thanks to our guest of the week in Abraham Gonzalez of nyfights.com. Fan-sided. He's on the Ring Ratings panel. He's all over the place. Probably one of the busiest guys in media boxing. He definitely is one of the busiest guys that we see on our timeline. So definitely putting in the work. And we obviously, as fans and as colleagues in this sport, we definitely appreciate the hard work you put in, man. But before we completely sign off, Mike, go ahead and let them know once again where they can find us and follow us.
We're at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter, and be sure to join us next week. We'll be previewing the big UK fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith.
Yep, it's UK fights now jumping into 2023. So for once again, our guest of the week and Abraham Gonzalez of nyfights.com. For my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.